Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. I'll be your host today, Aaron Schroeder, Possible Chairs, joining me from New Zealand. Dylan, how you doing?
Man, what an eventful few days. I decided to take a couple days off, go away for the weekend, and half of the NBA decides to change teams.
One of the most impactful trade deadlines we've had in a long time. I kind of felt like the general belief, and we did a podcast prior, is that it'd be kind of slow and held up by a Giannis situation. The Giannis situation unresolved, but the rest of the league goes goes buck wild anyways. But really, the starting point is your team, Dylan, the Los Angeles Clippers. Right after we finish recording our last podcast, the rumors start to swirl, and the trade goes down, and the Clippers flip James Harden for Darius Garland. How do you feel about that?
Um, it's kind of a hard one to assess because it really depends on like what your long-term goals are. Like clearly James Harden is a better player this year than Darius Garland is. You know, he's struggled a lot with coming back from this toe injury that seems to plague him. He seems to be a really good player every second year. If you look at his just stats year by year, every second year is really good. So I'm expecting big things from him next season. But I think a clear talent downgrade in the short term. And so, as I say, it depends what your goals as a franchise are. If we were wanting to, continue our really strong players of late and make a strong push up into the play-in and maybe beyond, then James Harden is a better fit. But moving forward, a player that's a little bit younger who has a really good season every second year, is maybe better suited. Especially when given the alternatives are you go into the play-in and then you come out and get swept by OKC in the first round. I'm not sure that does much for us as a franchise. So looking a little bit more to the future, and also James Harden's one of my favorite players in the NBA before he was on my team, and especially since. So getting him to a better situation does give me some consolation as well.
What do you think you remember most about the James Harden era with the Clippers?
What will I remember most? That's a difficult question. I don't know.
It's kind of the end of an era. They went all in, and they had the Kawhi and the Paul George thing. You end up getting Harden, and the Clippers always had the talent to feel like to make a deep playoff run. Never particularly materialized, especially with Harden last season. But do you think you look back on it fondly, or do you feel like this is the next reasonable step?
No, I mean, like for a team that isn't going to win a championship, like you move through these eras, right? Where you go all in, you make a solid attempt, it doesn't work, and you move on. And so, do I look back at Lob City and think, man, what a terrible waste of time that was? No, I loved Lob City, and I think it'll be the same for this. I'll look back at it fondly, even though it didn't get us to where we wanted to go. Still a great team, a great set of players. And as you say, like this is really the end of that era. This is moving on. James Harden out, Paul George gone, obviously. Even we'll get to later trades later. But I mean, Kawhi is the last man standing, and you'd have to think that he would probably also be traded if every GM in the league didn't suspect that he may get his contract voided.
I do feel like that's hanging over that situation. That is something I wanted to discuss. Is the Clippers kind of a team with no future? All of a sudden, if you're going to dangle Kawhi as this trade piece, I'm kind of interested. I'm kind of in on what that could be. A year ago, you'd probably get what Anthony Davis got recently, which was a bunch of nothing. But now, I mean, Kawhi has been healthy, and he's been so good this season. I do think you could get enough to kind of reset the franchise. But I mean, if you told me last year about a Darius Garland for Harden swap, I don't think we'd have thought that was possible because Garland was worth too much. I mean, he was 20 points a night. He was shooting 40% from three. He played over 70 games. He's one of the best passers in the league. And he's, literally a full decade, 10 years younger than Harden. That resets the Clippers clock in its entirety. And I felt like that was that's just such a nice piece for them to just to have a much better asset, in my opinion. And what about from the Cavs' perspective? Where are you at with them going forward? Do you think this immediately puts a ceiling on their team as a second round exit, or do you still believe in playoff James Harden?
I'm ready to get hurt again. No, I mean like they. I think there's some, maybe like increases their ceiling, if anything, that they were probably a second round exit coming into this. Evan Mobley having a down year, Darius Garland not playing up to his standards. Donovan Mitchell's been wonderful, but he's not going to do it all on his own. And so this now at least gives you like the, if game one and game two James Harden are enough to win you those two games, and then maybe if we can have game 6 and 7 Donovan Mitchell, I think this actually gives the Cavs a better ceiling, especially to make a push in the regular season where James Harden continues to just be a regular season monster, who plays every night, plays big minutes, and can really carry a team's offense.
He's a machine. Honestly, so impressed in that regard. I know players, it's an interesting era where players are both playing much later. We see really quality seasons into your late 30s, which used to be very, very rare. But also the league is getting younger. The league it's a young man's game right now. But you still see, despite a youth movement, athleticism movement, like 36-year-old James Harden is averaging 25, 5, and 8. Like he's still the most kind of the most unguardable isolation player, like which he's been every single year. There's if you have him on your team, you're always going to have like a reliable source of offense, at least in the regular season, by just kind of rolling the ball out and letting him work on some poor defensive player. But I could see the Cavs really wanting this to try to make that push, as they've struggled these regular season wise so far. But I don't think they'll be the last team to make the mistake of trading for James Harden, but they are the next one.
Yeah, can we maybe get another couple 1 to 2 seasons of Cavs playoff failures, and then the next team can talk themselves into James Harden? Hey, maybe the Wizards, they're trending towards being mediocre and needing an extra push.
They could be there. I do think we'll pivot off of Harden. Do you have a closing statement on? We'll pivot off of Harden. Let's say into the Zubac trade, into the big Z trades. Not only moving off of Harden, but you get this Zubac trade. I'll read the details out loud. So the Pacers receive Zubac and Kobe Brown. The Clippers receive Benedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, a first-round pick in 2026 and a 2029 first-round pick. Important note, the first-round pick this year from the Pacers is protected 1 through 4 and 10 through 30. Just a huge swing by the Clippers to try to snag that pick. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, so this first-round pick this year conveys only if it's 5 through 9. So very narrow window, but a real opportunity for a pretty, solid upside pick. And if it doesn't convey this year, I believe it converts to a unprotected 2031 pick.
Yeah.
Which is, you probably expect the team with Tyrese Haliburton, and now if it's a Zubac to hold up pretty well, but 2031 is a long way out, and unprotected picks, they can be anything. They could even be 5 through 9.
It could be anything at all.
It could even be the next Ivica Zubac.
They could grab him for sure. They could just flip it back. I do feel like I'm going to start with the Pacers, actually, because I really do love the fit. I think it'll look different. It's not going to be like the run and transition, Miles Turner space the floor, but he's still such a good rim protector. And for someone that is so good around the basket, having an offense to run with Haliburton, and just give him the ball just near the rim. He sets these great screens, and I think it'll really improve their long-term outlook and serve as their center replacement.
Yeah, I mean, they came into the season without really any theories at center. Like there was the Jay Huff experience, or Isaiah Jackson's got to, develop, 6 years worth of development over the course of the offseason. And they've got the season to worry about, which is maybe not worth worrying about the way that it's going. But more importantly, they've got next season with Tyrese Halliburton coming back. In theory, a team that just went to the NBA Finals, mostly still intact in terms of the key contributors. But the one spot is they obviously have lost Miles Turner, and so now they've replaced that. They've got a starting level center, a guy who's better than Miles Turner, who's a better defender than Miles Turner is, who's probably a better offensive player than Miles Turner is. When you factor in the offensive rebounding that Miles Turner doesn't do, you factor in the screen setting, which Miles Turner doesn't do well, and the ability also to play make on the short roll, which Miles Turner was more limited at. Zubac is a guy that you can throw the ball to if they decide to blitz the pick and roll, and he can make a good decision. He can find a cutter, or he can find a shooter, or he can flick that little post hook that seems to go in about 100% of the time. And so, as you say, it's going to be a different sort of team because for all of Zubac's great skills, which I just so heavily praised, he is still a bigger center. And so he's not going to be able to play with that same sort of pace that Miles Turner as a slimmer kind of guy was. And so it's going to be a little bit different, but I think it does have the potential to be better, not only defensively, where Zubac is, to be quite fair, having a down season this year, but has a wonderful track record as a defensive player in previous seasons. And so you hope that he can get back to the level he was at, where I had him as my defensive player of the year last year. And then, he also has the opportunity, even though he's not providing the floor spacing, to elevate the offense even higher as well. And so going into next season for the Pacers, you expect this is a team that could possibly be a top 5 offense and a top 10 defense. And that's a recipe for a very good regular season team.
Yeah, I can't wait to do our either our top 100 or our Eastern Conference predictions without Nate and just do crazy shit with the Pacers, like Halliburton and
70 wins.
Yeah, 68 wins seems about right. We'll try to plan that out without him. We can't let him sabotage our Tyrese Halliburton propaganda.
When's Rebecca's birthday? We'll make sure that we plan our Eastern Conference predictions for Nate's wife's birthday.
That's funny. I'm thinking right around there. Now, as a Clippers fan yourself, in your heart of hearts, do you feel good about the package you got for Zubac?
I think I see it as the front office sees it, which is like, I'm sure they, just like I, really do appreciate Ivica Zubac and think he's a top 10 player at his position, who does contribute on both ends of the ball. And so what I want, and also is, developed with the Clippers, has, a great rapport with the fans and with the locker room and the organization, and, not a guy that you want to see traded. But when you're in this sort of position where you're looking to reset your franchise to a degree and start to look more towards the future, I think that this package is exactly the sort of bare minimum that makes you, just really puts you in a position where you can't refuse the trade. And so, I think the package that they got back is right in line with that which makes you make a difficult decision and trade Ivica Zubac. And so I think I'm in alignment with the front office, which is I didn't want to see him go, but when this offer comes up, I think you do have to make this deal.
They're shaping the future. They kind of understand that era was done. Honestly, guys, I mean, I like Bennedict Mathurin. I think he's good. I thought he was strong in the finals. I'm looking at his Game 7 performance: 24 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 of 14 shooting.
Better than James Harden Game 7.
That's better than Bennedict Mathurin. Better than James Harden. You heard it here first on the Hoops Temple podcast. But at just 23, heading into 24 years old, this season dealt with some injuries. Has dealt with some injuries throughout his career. But 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Like, I kind of think, I mean, this is a dumb comparison, but like when you have like Jonathan Kuminga or like other wings that have no feel, but they're very athletic, I think Bennedict Mathurin actually has really good feel. Like he gets placement and how to get to the basket, and he's kind of the inverse of that. I think it is the right move, and you want to see the Clippers start to head in that direction.
Yeah,
Right.
it's going to be difficult for the Clippers because Mathurin is a pending restricted free agent. You've got less than half of the season to evaluate his not only his fit with the team, but what you project his long-term future to be, and how much you're willing to commit to that. And so it's a difficult decision that they've got to make in a short period of evaluation. But restricted free agents are good in that you you have a enormous amount of leverage. In terms of what their eventual salary is. And we've seen in recent years that restricted free agency, I think, is getting more and more, um, you know, team friendly and more punishing to the player, where teams just aren't willing to sacrifice their entire free agency period by having their cap space tied up in this offer that they think might get matched. And so we've seen a lot of restricted free agents that I'm sure teams would like to throw an offer at, but they just aren't willing to miss out on every other free agent while the team sits there and reflects. And maybe that's like a rule change that needs to be made if we're going to have restricted free agency continue to be a thing, where you put a more strict time limit on the amount of time that a team has to match. Maybe it's you've got 24 hours to match this deal instead of being able to make an offer and then they sit on it until the last day of free agency and then they go, yeah, we'll match.
Is it the Jonathan Kuminga rule? We're going to change that just for him.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think that's a trade I'm very interested in. Let's do 1 second on that, just since I did mention his name. Jonathan Kuminga got freed. He's out. They freed him from there's a dungeon underneath the Warriors arena, and they kept Jonathan Kuminga in that. And he broke out. Him and Buddy Hield are heading to Atlanta, and Kristaps Porzingis heading to Golden State. Which one of these teams do you feel like won this deal?
I almost feel like it's almost a situation where they probably looked around the league, both teams, in terms of what they could get back, and then we're like, man, we're not really getting much in the way of offers. I guess we'll just take this deal, because it does kind of feel like a sort of incomplete or not entirely great fit for either team, where Golden State gets a very a center who maybe would fit their play style decently, but has so many questions in terms of availability. And then Atlanta get a ball dominant power forward that is really good at getting downhill to fit next to their star player, who's a on ball power forward who's really good at getting downhill. And so I think for both teams, they probably would have preferred something else. But I'm sure they made the best deal that was available. And so they end up with, I think you could argue for both teams an upgrade over what they had, but maybe somewhat questionable fits for both.
We kind of run into the Kristaps Porzingis illness. It says that he has POTS, a kind of from my understanding, autoimmune disorder, like an irregular response to illness. Am I saying that right? Yeah, automatic nervous system causing rapid heart rate. Anyways, Kristaps Porzingis fluctuates in terms of how he is feeling. He will feel ill and then be okay at undetermined intervals. And so with Golden State, I do feel like per minute, Kristaps Porzingis is like one of the 30 best players in the world still. Like he's still such a good protector. He spaces the floor. If you could guarantee me a couple rounds of health, like you do that, because come playoff time, the two players that aren't going to play for Golden State are Buddy Hield and Jonathan Kuminga. They're never going to be out there. So you might as well. And it's an expiring contract. I think Atlanta kind of wanted to get some value back for that expiring deal. And you could kind of be the one team that gets to see if Jonathan Kuminga is actually good, because you probably never would know that in Golden State. And you get off of this Kristaps experience where he just hasn't been able to be out there. And the window for Golden State's just so dire that you kind of have to take a swing like this and say, hey, if he can be out there for one round of a playoff series, maybe we can still win that.
Yeah. No, maybe you're right. Maybe this is actually the exact kind of move that Golden State should have made. that this isn't a last resort and that this is actually almost a best case scenario because you've got Jonathan Kaminga who, you know, we understand what his expectations are. He thinks that he, you know, when given the ball, is going to become a star player, and is going to want to be paid as such and wants the opportunity to display that he's that. But what he's been so far is like a somewhat decent, bench scorer. And so you've got this big disparity in terms of his expected value and what he's actually given you so far. And so, his value around the league is probably somewhere in between those two. And so to be able to move him for a player who has the real opportunity to contribute, for this player whose value is probably negative because of his salary expectations and his role expectations compared to what he's given so far. Kristaps Porzingis has played 17 games this year and only 24 minutes in those games and has come off the bench a lot. But having a rim protector who can also space the floor and put the ball on the floor and, do a little something self-created, is such an incredibly valuable player. And we just saw, in the NBA finals and in the conference finals, what having that sort of player can do for you.
And still like the best post-up player in basketball. But like point per possession wise.
Yeah.
Jokic is obviously really something, but I'm pretty sure he, at least last season, he owned that, where it just he has such great touch, and I think Kristaps could really deliver something for a Warriors team that's kind of desperate to salvage the end of Steph's career, which kind of seems like it's gonna end with thud. And it just kind of slowly, after the Butler injury, you can kind of cash it in, and the two timelines thing that they've attempted totally flamed out. They would have been better cashing it in a million other times and just moving in a different direction or restarting fully. But I think the huge deal that really rocked everything was Anthony Davis. So a year ago, the Mavericks out of nowhere traded Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis, and that was a horrendous move. And usually it takes a second to kind of really gauge, like, all right, what assets are coming in? You get these picks and whatnot. But the fact that the Mavs immediately took Davis and sold him off for scraps, it really settles that they salary dumped Luka Doncic. That's kind of like the end. It happened so close together that that's essentially what happened. I'll read the trade details now. The Dallas Mavericks from the Washington Wizards received Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Malachi Branham, Marvin Bagley. Do you like any of those players?
AJ Johnson's like decent as a flyer.
Okay.
He'd be a guy that I would want to get back. Maybe not as the centerpiece for a guy I traded my franchise player for, but he at least is a guy that I would rather have on my team if the alternative is nothing. Unlike everyone else that you said.
Better than nothing. You have OKC's first round pick this season, which will probably be 30, and a 2030 protected first round pick from Golden State in 3 seconds. Now, I actually don't have the protections on the Golden State pick offhand at the moment. Do you know those?
No, not off the top of my head, sorry.
Well, we'll assume that it's heavily protected, and I'll do some research in the meantime. But in return, the Wizards got Anthony Davis, Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, and Dante Exum. So 3 guards that don't matter. And Anthony Davis, now all of a sudden the Wizards have Anthony Davis and Trae Young on the same team. I want to start with this. What do you think next season looks like for them?
I mean, it appears that they've gone all in on getting the 9 seed. They moved out of this John Wall, Bradley Beal era where they made a lot of really bad decisions. And it seemed like when they brought in Michael Winger from the Clippers that they were going to rebuild the right way, where they traded off their veterans for whatever value they could get, made some difficult decisions around their roster, and went all in on rebuilding the right way. And now 2 years into that, they have decided that with no real centerpiece, it's not like they have a clear star of the future on their roster. They do have some guys I like, but none of those guys I would say am I projecting to be an All NBA player with a great degree of confidence at this point. And so they've gone all in around a young core with maybe limited upside and tried to build around those with the remains of Anthony Davis and Trae Young, who the league just had a referendum on and decided that his type of player no longer wins you NBA games. I think it's a very bizarre move from Washington. Of course, the counterpoint is they gave up so little value that you are like getting a good player for so little. And so, from just a straight asset perspective, I suppose it is a good deal. But just from a team building perspective, in terms of where they are, like they're not going to be a really good playoff team next year. They're probably going to be somewhere in the sort of 6 to 10 range. And now they've limited their upside in the draft as well and moved future assets for immediate success. But those players are not that good. It's a strange move. I struggle to figure out what Washington are thinking with this.
I kind of ended up just feeling like they gave up so little that I just couldn't care. I read the players that they gave up. They gave up matching salary. There was Middleton for Davis, and then what was the contract they did for Trae Young? What was that? Let's see.
CJ McCollum.
CJ McCollum, right? And so I mean, those guys, it's like that's not important. Those are two non contributors. They're not important. It's like, yeah, I'd take a swing on Trae Young and Anthony Davis. Like, you have them under contract next season. At the worst, could you rehab their image a little bit and maybe get an equal return if you don't feel like it's working out by someone else who wants to give it a stab? I mean, you just got matching salaries, and I think that it's just a shockingly low value for how good I think we both think Anthony Davis is. When healthy, made at least one of the 20 best players in the league, and some would argue a little bit higher than that. And the Warriors pick is top 20 protected. I couldn't find what it defers to, like what it might become. I don't know if there is a might become. It just might be top 20 protected. I really looked for that. I apologize if this is false information.
It may be what's referred to around NBA circles as a fake first. You trade the player that you traded Anthony Davis for, and so when Shams tweets, you've got to make it look like you got a good return. And so you say to Washington, like, oh, that top 20 protected pick from Golden State in 2030, can we have that? And if it doesn't convert, it turns into nothing, just so Shams can say we got a first round pick.
I hope a team makes a trade where they get like every single first from another team, but they're all like so heavily protected. It's like in 7 first-round picks, and like one of them conveys. But
yeah, 7 first-round picks protected top 20 and immediately convert to 1 second.
Immediately. But I can't help but I think Dallas fans are fine because Cooper Flagg is so good. He's been on a tear this past week or so. I think there's probably like 6 people in the NBA I would rather build around. And so even if you're going to make fun of them for this deal and for the Luka deal, like I'd have to have a real conversation about whether if I had to start an NBA team, if I'm taking like Luka or Flagg right now. And so I think they're kind of at peace with it.
Yeah. I mean, like from Dallas's perspective, I actually do think this is a reasonable deal. They should be building around Cooper Flagg. They shouldn't be, putting assets and minutes into veterans who are trying to win them games now, when they've got Cooper Flagg, who's clearly their future. And I almost agree that like if they hadn't have traded Luka and then they got Cooper Flagg, that maybe they still should have traded Luka. The big problem, obviously, is just that they did it for such a terrible return. Wherein if they had a actual trade market, they would have got 2 good young players and 4 first-round picks. And instead, they've got Chris Middleton and a top 20 Golden State fake first-round pick.
Yeah. Yeah, not an ideal situation for Dallas, but you can't
So
help but write out the
yeah, yeah. So like, and we'll like get to this if we get to talking about some other teams such as the Chicago Bulls,
Mhm.
where if you evaluate purely from the season, then maybe the return is actually not so bad. But if you factor in the previous 3 to 5 years, um, and take it as sort of a totality, then the return becomes much, much worse.
Let's talk about the Bulls. We're gonna get to the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. Let's touch on the Bulls for just a second. So essentially, looking through all their deals, so they received their new team is Jay. They have Jaden Ivey, they have Anthony Simons, and what was the other one they grabbed? They have Colin Sexton and about 15 second round picks. And they lost Kobe White and Nikola Vucevic and Kevin Harder.
Yeah. And so in a vacuum, oh, and Ayo Dosunmu also who's a
Oh
good
yeah,
player.
for Rob Dillingham
Um,
and
mm,
4 seconds, more second
yeah,
round picks,
yeah,
guys. They
yeah.
got it.
And so, like in a vacuum, if you said just what is the value of the players going in and the players going out, like it's not a bad deal for Chicago. You certainly have questions around the fact that their roster is now entirely consistent of point guards. But just in terms of assets, players in, players out, it's not so bad. Where the real issue is that they should have traded those players before this when they could have got more value. When, teams were desperate for wings with a little bit of two-way ability, and you could have got a first-round pick for Ayo Dosunmu, where, Kobe White was having an excellent scoring season and was looking like a guy who's a clear starting point guard. You could have got better value for him. And instead, the Chicago Bulls spent years at the deadline, apparently without knowing that you're allowed to make trades. And now Arturas Kivnisovas has finally figured out that you're allowed to make trades and has done all of them at once. But it's too late. Like the value of those players is past. And so like just straight player in, player out, it's reasonable, but from a long-term perspective, and it's not like a situation in Dallas where they've got a totally new general manager, and so you can sort of detach this year's moves from previous year's moves, even though it's the same, ownership that's approving it. The Bulls have had the same management getting extensions for making, constructing terrible rosters year after year, and so yeah, like the long term value is disappointing, even if the short term return is actually fairly good.
It's like the one red paper clip.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this guy who traded one red paper clip all up to a house. And the Bulls like got up to like the snowmobile portion of that trade. Like they like made a bunch of value, and then they found some guy who would give them 8,000 paper clips for the snowmobile. Just like he's like, look, these all could be like it's like
I
yeah,
could trade all of these up to be snowmobiles.
it's like yeah, but now you just have like a lot of paper clips. And when you take you're supposed to take your assets and then move them in a positive direction. At least some of them, especially with the Bulls directions. Like, could you have taken Kobe White and Osumu and gotten a better thing? But they took everything they had and they broke it into such small pieces that now they don't have any assets anymore. They made their assets non-assets. Rob Dillingham sucks. Like, I'm sorry, like Rob Dillingham's not going to be in the league in 2 seasons. And the 4 second rounders, you can have a million second rounders. It takes like 6 seconds to equal the value of even like a late first. There's such a value gap in picking 15 spots later, especially so deep into that.
Yeah, maybe the Bulls think that they're just getting 6 Nikola Jokic's, and they really back themselves that much with their draft. But yeah, like second round picks are things that you throw into a trade where the other team is like, we're almost there. What else can you give me? Like, I'll give you a second round pick. Like they're worth almost nothing. Like they're a sweetener. They're a cherry on top for when you're trying to get a move made. And yeah, like looking at the players that they got, like what is Anthony Simons moving forward? Rob Dillingham, you said, is going to be out of the league, so we won't talk too much about him. Colin Sexton has pretty much established himself as like a bench combo guard. Jaden Ivey is he also a pending restricted free agent?
I don't know if he's. Yeah, I believe so.
And so, like, yeah, I'm not sure that anything that they got back is really worth the value of what they potentially could have gotten.
I'm gonna drive a truck full of gasoline into the ESPN headquarters if they autoplay another ad.
Guys, we're live on a podcast, okay? We're professionals here. We don't need your full volume ad.
So yesterday they played the Raptors and got obliterated. They started Jalen Smith, Isaac Okoro, Modest Buzelis, Anthony Simons, Jaden Ivey. I really like Buzelis. Like I think he's quite a valuable piece. I like his feel, his athleticism, the way he handles the ball. Anyways, but and after off the bench, Mac McClung got 13 minutes. Like they signed him after trading for every guard in the NBA. They signed one off the G League. They also traded for Gershon Yabusele. Forgot to mention that. Dalen Terry for Gershon Yabusele. What's going on here? Like, it's just this roster looks objectively worse, and I kind of feel bad. I feel bad for Bulls fans. My poor grandmother in Chicago is. I like every couple hours. I just text her another tweet, be like, I don't know what they're doing on this one. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. Her favorite player, I would assume she was heartbroken.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like tell her like Jaden Ivey's like 6'5", maybe he can play some 4.
Is he 6 feet? No, 6'5". Are you suggesting that I lie to her about the players? Okay. I was gonna say, I was like, Jaden Ivey did not grow overnight. Okay. Touch on the Bulls. Unfortunate that we wanted them to make moves. Now they figured it out. They're like, go back. Terrible idea. But the other kind of blockbuster is the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. So Jaren Jackson Jr. goes to Utah. The Jazz receive Triple J, of course, John Conchar, Jock Landale, and Vince Williams. Memphis receives Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, Georges Niang, and the most favorable 2027 pick of the Cavs, Timberwolves, Jazz. And the Jazz, the Lakers 2027 first, and the Suns 2031 first. We didn't see this coming at all, huh? This is like way out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, they tricked us. They said we're going to trade Ja Morant, send us your offers, and secretly the whole time people were calling up and being like, "So Ja Morant, I'll give you like matching salary in a second," and then their general manager's like, "Yeah, but what would you give us for Jaren Jackson?" This was all just a scheme to get general managers on the phone, apparently, because like this sort of came out of nowhere, and it's a very surprising move, and like I'm not sure how I feel about the return, to be quite honest.
It's one of those tricky trades where I hated the contract so much at like $60 million a year that I didn't really mind that it wasn't like this. Like they didn't really get any players that I like. They get 3 firsts. We'll see where those end up. One of the
like two of them are gonna be in the 20s, and then that one Suns pick, which maybe has a little bit of upside, but like that least favorable, and then the Lakers picks, like those are gonna be like 22.
I have the most favorable.
The most favorable.
Wolves and Jazz, which would probably be the Jazz's pick, right, next season. So that's something.
So the most favorable of 3 teams trying to make the playoffs,
essentially.
So maybe it's the 19th pick instead of the 20th.
Could be. What do you think got into Danny Ainge? Danny Ainge will only make a deal if he thinks he is just fucking you over. Unless he feels like the earth is crashing down and he has to make this deal because these assets are too valuable not to just capitalize on, he won't do that. Now, do we think that he hates all the players that he was getting rid of? Like, just didn't care about any of them? Or maybe the picks aren't too valuable. I mean, what do you see for a Laurie Marketed Triple J combo?
Yeah, no, we do know that he didn't just hate all the players, because apparently Georges Niang is like the organization's favorite player. Like everyone there just really loves him for whatever reason. Like he's just a really great guy. They just actually really genuinely want him on their team. And so I'm sure that there is some level of despair to move out their favorite player. But no, I think it's a from an asset perspective, you trade two shitty firsts, some players that aren't really gonna maybe be anything, and get a potential All NBA player back. I think
Wow.
it's a good asset play. And then like, what are the Jazz? What are they with Markin and Jaren Jackson? Well, the Jazz are in a little bit different of a position than say the Wizards are, because the Jazz actually do have good players. Um, Walker Kessler, when he's healthy again, is a good starting NBA center. Keontae George is I think shown enough signs to make you think that this is a legit solid starting point guard. And then, as you say, Larry Markkinen, who's sort of flirted with all-star status in previous seasons. And so the Utah Jazz are in a little bit different of a position to Washington, because they actually do have good players on the roster. And whereas Washington could have tanked and won 12 games again next season, the Jazz, it's getting a little bit ridiculous with the lengths that they had to go to stop their team from winning games, because they were starting to develop some really good players. And so, now they've got four really good young players, and they had to give up so little to get it. Like, I agree with you, the contract is kind of scary, um, but and maybe that'll hurt them in the future when they look to resign the likes of George, or um, yeah, I guess just George. But like, yeah, I think they've put together a really solid team. And if they were in a position where they felt like they couldn't tank anymore, and they needed to make some progress and start to actually generate winning seasons, then for such a little asset cost, I don't think you could have done better than this.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I'm excited because I've always said Laurie Markkinen is like one of the 30 best players in the league, and you just never get to see that.
Yeah,
And
when
the
they're
Jazz
not
have done.
holding him out because he keeps winning them games that they don't want to win.
He keeps winning them games. He's like 7-1. He's one of the most like devastating floor spacers at that size. Kind of a really elite shooter with great off ball movement. You can kind of put the ball in his hands a bit, and it has enough size where I really think contribute to an elite defense if they ever decided to take basketball seriously. And I think this is the move that really helped with Jaren Jackson Jr. and with Walker Kessler, who's a really great protector. I think the Jazz could be, I mean, could be good next season. I think we'll have to see how hard they try, but this move suggests that they actually, for the first time in a while, will try. With the Wizards, you mentioned they could tank next year too. How many times can you be the worst team of all time in a row before your fan base gets upset about it?
Well, if you're a good team, then that a good organization, um, then in theory you should keep doing it until you've got a way out. Like, you're looking for your way out. You shouldn't, you know, throw away that opportunity to find that superstar player by trading for two sub all stars, in the hopes of winning 38 games. Like, that does nothing for your franchise long term. And so, like, yes, being a terrible team over and over again really sucks. As you know, I'm sure that you can attest to, as a Kings fan. But as I'm as I'm sure you also know, if you had just done it the right way and built through the draft and found superstar players instead of trading for Zach Randolph and Zach Levine and DeMar DeRozan and
Zebo.
Sabonis and George Hill and Rajon Rondo and all
Yeah,
these
yeah.
players to try to not be terrible. Like that's the way that you curse your franchise. Like you need to do it the right way. You need to find a centerpiece and build around them, and not try to reach this minimum level of competence, which just hurts you, sort of in the long run.
Like the idea of like Zach Randolph actually impacting. I think the best thing you could have done was sign 36-year-old Zach Randolph. That year we were 29th in offensive rating and 29th in offensive rating, 28th in defensive rating, 29th in net rating. Zebo was good though. He took 2.5 threes a game. He averaged 15 and 7. He was great. He was
Shout
great.
out to Sacramento Kings Zebo.
I will mention, I think I got like a Zebo shirt at one point, but I'll mention my Kings for a second. We made no moves at the deadline other than the DeAndre Hunter trade, which we already talked about. It's a really interesting position where I think we're the first team in NBA history to be the oldest and the worst at the same time. I don't know, and so in a sense, it's like, oh, we have to move these players because you want to lose more games because this is a really great draft. You want a top 5 pick. I actually don't, in my head, honestly, not necessary. Now that I've really thought about it, like, yeah, I wanted assets in return. It's probably better for the tank that Zach Levine continues to play. Like, it's better for our tanking chances that DeMar DeRozan's out there. Because, we lost to the Wizards. The Wizards were playing high schoolers. And we had Zach Levine and DeMar DeRozan. They combined for 60 points, and we lost that game. Like, even if they're trying their asses off, like, we cannot play good basketball. I want to touch on the Wizards for 1 second. Here's my Wizards trivia question. What season did the Washington Wizards franchise last record an above average offensive and defensive rating?
Oh, 2010?
2010, they were below average on both sides of the ball.
God damn it.
Keep moving.
Backwards or forwards?
Backwards.
Oh, no.
I
don't think those early 2000s teams were.
Okay, close. So in the mid 2000s, the Gilbert Arenas, they were above average offensively in 4 straight seasons. This year, their leader in win shares was Chris Webber. 1998. It's been a little bit. It's been a bit.
So the Wizards haven't been better than mediocre in offense and defense for the entire time that you have experienced life on Earth.
That's true. So since 2000, they've been above average on offense 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. 9 times, and above average on defense 4 times. And they haven't been above average on either side of the ball since 2020. Anyways, just talking about the Wizards' continual rebuild.
And so, coming into next season, Aaron.
Yes.
What sort of odds would I have to give you to bet that the Wizards will continue to be below average on offense and defense?
Wow. So, team with Trae Young and Anthony Davis, and I think they're going to be below average on both sides of the ball still. Negative offensive. Man, they at least have to be kind of good offensively, right? Like, is Trae Young not good for that anymore?
I mean, they this year, the 29th offense.
Jesus.
Trae Young's team, the Atlanta Hawks, are the 20th best offense.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to split the difference.
Man, that's so tricky because Davis probably isn't going to play much. I'd have to say if it were like life on the line, I'd bet that they're still below average on both sides of the ball, despite this addition. Scott, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, what an incredible outlook for the Washington Wizards. Let's just I'll quickly bring up, are the Hawks, have they actually been good on offense with Trae Young on the floor? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
122.5 offensive rating, 9.3 points per 100 better when he's on. That is, though, balanced with a 129.3 defensive rating.
that was the problem.
16 points worse when he's on.
I think the NBA, it just kind of moves quickly. Really move because I feel like I paid attention really closely for a certain era now, and I kind of realized like yesterday's price is not today's price, and we get Trae Young, who was this just a blisteringly hot offensive talent 5 years ago, even 3 or 4 years ago, and now we're here, and the league's moved to a point where it's just everyone on the floor can target a guy like that. The team's running out 5 lineups of just guys that can target Trae Young, and it didn't used to be that way. And so the offensive value is just, if you're someone who's gotten worse, he's shot the ball worse. He's hasn't been the same scorer since the 2021 conference finals run.
The refs have patched his free throw drawing hack.
You can't jump backwards anymore, which is like, thank God, because that was such a pain to watch. And now it's just the defensive issues are brought up more. I mean, I think it really is a league now where your greatest strength is less important than your greatest weakness. You're defined by your greatest weakness, and I think that is something to really consider. But
yeah,
did you have a trade? Go ahead.
A good example of that, to your point, is the best team in the NBA, the Oklahoma City Thunder, where, like, what is their one greatest strength? Like, obviously they've got the best player in the NBA, but
yeah,
other than that, like, what is their one great strength? Their strength is that they don't have any weaknesses. Like, other than, they don't get offensive rebounds. Other than that, like, you are just not going to be able to find a way to exploit them.
It is kind of crazy because the Thunder haven't been like overly dominant. It feels like, not like last season. And yet they're first in defensive rating and fourth in offensive rating with an SRS of 11.6, which is like the fifth or so highest ever. Their ratings plus 12.2. It doesn't feel like the Thunder have just been kicking ass like that, but holy shit, like they're putting up like late 90s Bulls seasons. It's pretty unbelievable. I'm looking forward to seeing if they can repeat again. But I had one last big trade, which was the Jared McCain deal. Did you have one that was really jumping out, or do you want to touch on that one?
No, let's do that.
Let's do that. So the Oklahoma City Thunder, speaking of the Thunder, get guard Jared McCain, and the Sixers received a 2026 first-round pick via Houston and 3 second-round picks. So, and that's salary dumping, but just kind of an exchange of assets there. Do you still believe in Jared McCain?
I do, and especially at this asset price. Like, these are it's almost incredible that this deal went through, given who like both the GMs are for both of these teams. And so the only thing I can think is that they have a real difference in evaluation on McCain, where Daryl Morey is a notorious like over demander for asset returns. Like he'll call up and ask for your best player and give you like offer you 2 role players. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? And then obviously OKC is one of the smartest organizations in the league. And so like, yeah, a lower sort of asset price for, I mean, what is really a luxury for OKC. They just got their third string point guard. This was to upgrade their third string point guard. And like, yeah, he's having a sort of a rougher season this year. But I do think that his shooting ability that he's shown, combined with the ball handling that he possesses, is still a lethal combination. If he can get that 2-point shooting up, the 3-point shooting has remained fairly solid even in this down season. But yeah, if that 2-point efficiency can come up, and maybe playing, with Chet Holmgren at the 5 and 5 out spacing and the ball in his hands is a good way to make your 2-point shots easier. So yeah, like I do still believe in Jared McCain as a solid NBA player, and the asset return is not that high for OKC to give up, and they also have this great luxury where they are bringing him in as a, almost sort of a lottery ticket, where if he works out, then awesome. It's another great guy that we've managed to find and develop. And if he doesn't work out, like I said, they've got 2 point guards on the roster that are better than him already.
It is just a luxury. It's an added thing. And I think McCain showed such flashes as a rookie as like a legitimate kind of on-ball scorer, like really great feel, found his spots, cut to the basket, could get open in so many different ways. You kind of take that swing. I do think Daryl Morey kind of, I don't know why this one bothered me more. James Harden standing in front of all those beautiful Chinese children. it was like Daryl Morey's a liar. I'm never playing for him again. Like that certainly buried Daryl Morey, but also the fact that he came out after this one and was like, "Oh, I think we sold high on Jared McCain." And it's like, why do you have to be such an ass about it? Like, what's what's the point of just like dunking on a 23-year-old and being like, "Yeah, fuck that guy. We sold
It's
high."
because Sixers fans are like, what the hell is this guy doing? He just traded 2013 Steph Curry for nothing.
Essentially, I was looking at the NBA executive register. Daryl Morey is 11th in executive wins. He wins 60% of his games from 2007 to 2026. Like, I think if he was a cooler guy, you could be like Daryl Morey. Like could he have snuck into the Hall of Fame at some point just because he's had such a long and successful career? But I genuinely think no one likes him.
Yeah, he's a. I think he has people who do like him, and they like him to a great degree. But I think he's a sort of a not for everybody kind of guy. Where like the guys that do like him, which are maybe not the most likable guys themselves. You know, the people who are maybe more fond of an asshole. Those guys do really like him. But yeah, I agree that the average he's certainly not for everybody.
Doesn't seem that way. All right. Well, I think those are the big ones. Was there a notable trade that I forgot?
No, I think we'll maybe sort of
The Lakers got rid of Gabe Vincent. Congratulations to them.
Good
I
job,
do think
guys.
it's a classic trade for a super one-dimensional player that you like, hey, Luke Kennard's like the best shooter in the NBA right now, but you actually do have to play a guy that can't play any defense. And I think there was a point in LeBron's career where he was a good enough defensive anchor and in the playoffs more recently that you could warrant kind of one-way guys. Now you're going to have to play like Luka and LeBron. And are you really going to stick Luke Kennard out there too, like in any meaningful game? Like,
Yeah,
probably not.
You go in Luka and LeBron, two negative defenders, paired with Austin Reeves, negative defender. And then at the 5, you got DeAndre Ayton, negative defender. And then you can throw Luke Kennard out there to complete this lineup. To be fair, nobody's going to stop that lineup, but it might just be the Trae Young, 122.5 offensive rating, 129 defensive rating.
Hey man, just get hot, Yeah, the Lakers currently with the 23rd defensive rating. I mean, they guarded Gabe Vincent. I'm not gonna shit on them all too much, but
I would like to establish that I do have some Gabe Vincent stock.
Really, there's no way.
I'm buying low. It's the stock price is actually negative where I'm being paid to take Gabe Vincent stock.
It does feel that way.
I think it's going to come around. I think he, maybe he can still pull something out.
Really? Why is that?
Because he was a good player a couple years ago, and has been put in maybe not the best sort of situations.
Yeah, I can see that. The Heat really get the most out of you. They trust and they believe in their players. And the Lakers, you get like one chance, and they're like, get out of my rotation. And honestly, take a second and just kind of tab through like all the Lakers rosters on Basketball Reference over the past years. Like they've already played 19 players this season. Like that's usually like what a tanking team is up to.
Oh, you got to get LeBron's son a couple minutes.
That's true. Got to get him out there. All right. Well, in basically an hour on the dot, my time management skills are impeccable.
That's truly impressive.
My internal clock is perfect. Dylan, where can the people find you?
Every week on the Hoops Table podcast.
You can find me, Possible Chairs on Twitter, Possible Chairs on TikTok, my Patreon for all the all-time rankings, and the Hoops Temple podcast, where maybe, if I can convince Dylan to do it, we'll rank the top 10 players of the 2021 season.
What a year.
What a year. Thank you guys for listening.